everyone. Welcome to church. So glad you could make it here today. If you're watching online, welcome. Let's sing some songs and stand up and sing. There were walls between us. By the cross you came and broke them down. You broke them down. There were chains around us. By your grace we are no longer bound. No longer bound. You call me out of the grave. You call me into the light. You call my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. We feel the darkness shaking. All the dead are coming back to life. I'm back to life. Hear the song awaken. All creation singing we're alive. 'Cause you're alive. You call me out of the grave. You call me into the light. You call my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love
impossible when there seems to be no way. There's a way with you, and you make that way clear. So God, we put our lives in your hands. We put our hearts in your hands today. This is only you, God. Only you. When the weight of life begins to fall, on the name of Jesus I will call. For I know my God is in control, and his purpose is unshakable. Doesn't matter what I feel, doesn't matter what I see, my hope will always be in your promises to me. Now I'm casting out all fear, for your love has set me free. My hope will always be in your promises to me. As I walk into the days to come, I will not forget what you have done. For you have supplied my every need, oh yes, and your presence is enough for me, yeah. Doesn't matter what I feel, doesn't matter what I see, 'cause my hope will always be in your promises to me. Now I'm casting out all fear, for your love has set me free. My hope will always be in your promises to me. Oh, yeah. Oh, you will always be more than enough for me. You will always be more than enough for me. Nothing's gonna stop the plans you made. Nothing's gonna take your love away. You will always be more than enough for me. Oh yes, you will always be more than enough for me, my God. You will always be more than enough for me. Nothing's gonna stop the plans you made. Nothing's gonna take your love away. You will always be more than enough for me. Yes, you will always be more than enough for me. Yeah, yeah. You will always be more than enough for me. Nothing's gonna stop the plans you made. Nothing's gonna take your love away. You will always be more than enough for me. Doesn't matter what I feel, doesn't matter what I see, my hope will always be in your promises to me. Now I'm casting out all fear, for your love has set me free. Yes, my hope will always be in your promises to me. Doesn't matter what I feel, doesn't matter what I see, my hope will always be in your promises to me. Now I'm casting out all fear, for your love has set me free. Oh God, I can't trust my own feelings sometimes. I can't even trust my perspective sometimes, God. If I'm right in the thick of it, God, sometimes I don't know which way to go, but God, you know. You see it all. You have a bird's eye view. You know what's going on in each and every one of our hearts. So God, in this moment, as we sing these words, God, we leave room for you. We leave room for you to lead the way, God. And we leave it in your hands. Because you're the one who loves us. You're the one who cares. You're the one who knows. And we can trust in you, God. We can trust in your word. And your word says that you are good. Your word says that you love us. It's all in your hands. I leave it all in your hands, my God. Yes. It's all in your hands. My heart, my life, all to you. Yes, God. It's all in your hands. As I was praying and preparing this morning, that's the line that kind of came to my head, and I wanted to share that with you. My week's been like this, and then up and down. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. It'd take probably a little too long to explain everything, but that's one thing I've been holding on to this week. It's all in his hands. Because just as I prayed, I can't see it all. I don't have all the answers. So it's all in your hands, God, because I trust in him. I hope you can trust in him today as well. Thanks for singing, everyone. I'm going to ask you to grab a seat as we continue.
Awesome. Well, thanks for singing with us, everybody. It was awesome to be able to take a moment. You know, life can be busy, life can be crazy, and it's awesome to take a moment together and just remind ourselves of the promises of God. So thank you for singing with us and being part of that. So glad that you're here with us this morning. I know it's good that you're out of the house after this crazy weekend of weather. I know this whole weekend I felt like it was like a really long, awkward conversation I wanted to be over. Like all Friday and Saturday, I'd look out the window and be like, oh, still going. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, we're still going. All right. It just doesn't seem to stop. But we're glad that you're here, especially if you're a guest with us today. You're here for the first time. First of all, I just want to say there's a reason why you're here this morning. And I hope that you feel loved and you feel welcome and comfortable, and that God speaks to you this morning. And so we're just so thankful that you decided to join our family. Maybe this is your first time or first time in a long time. We just want to say welcome. We actually want to connect with you and give you a gift too, just as a thank you. How you receive that gift is simply take the connection card, which you can find at the back of the seat in front of you, fill out some info on there, and then after this experience, you can exchange that card at the big blue wall, Central Connect in the lobby. If you're watching online, same thing for you as well. We'd love to connect with you today. Click on the New Here tab, and we'd love to put a gift in your hands digitally today. At this point, we're going to invite our host to the front as we give this morning. Now, again, if you are a guest with us, please feel zero obligation to give. This is simply something that we do as a church family to invest in what God's doing in and through our community, and a weekly reminder that we put God first in everything, including our finances. But if you would like to give this morning, you can take advantage of it in multiple ways. You can see that on the screen. And one more thing about giving, we will be giving out tax receipts will be coming your way in just a couple weeks. So keep your eye open for that. Tax receipts for the 2017 giving year. Just a couple things I want to let you know about this morning. Coming up on March 4th, we have an opportunity for you. If you are here in this community and you haven't had a chance to get connected, you haven't found your place, you don't know where you fit. I know there's a lot going on, and it could be a little bit intimidating coming here. And so we want you to get connected. We want you to find out what Central is all about. What's our DNA? What's our heartbeat? Why do we do what we do? What makes Central Central? We have a session designed for you called Next Steps.
Next Steps is designed for you to figure out what we're all about and then maybe where you fit and how you can get plugged in and connected in this community that is alive and growing and doing so many amazing things. And we want you to be a part of it. So if that's you and you want to get connected, join us March 4th for Next Steps. Also, March 25th, we have a baptism experience. Now, baptism Sundays are some of our favorite weekend experiences throughout the entire year because it's just this beautiful opportunity to have people come up here and make a public declaration of the life transformation that they've experienced internally. They've had this crazy encounter with God. They have this a new emerging faith, and they get to come up here and they get to tell their friends and family of what's been happening inside of them in the waters of baptism, which actually represent this idea that they die to their old life and are raised up a new creation, resurrected with Christ. This is really awesome, beautiful experience. And so if that's you, and you've had that in your heart and in your life, and God's changing you from the inside out, and you want to share that with everybody, sign up. You can sign up by sending an email to baptisms@centralcc.ca, or you can go to the big blue wall and sign up at Central Connect in the lobby. We'd love to have you join us to be a part of that inspiring, amazing experience on March 25th. Well, that's all the need to know I have for you this morning. I invite you to prepare your hearts. We invite Pastor Bill to the stage as we continue in week 2 of our series, Guardrails.
Well, good morning. How you doing? Yeah, 4 of us. All right. Well, I hope Hey, thanks for being here. If you're watching online, we have just been hit by a snowstorm, and so you being here means you are truly Canadian. Congratulations. Yep. We don't let a little snow keep us from what we really want, right? No, not in this place. So, hey, thank you so much for being here. My name is Bill. I'm one of the pastors. And we're in this really exciting series called Guardrails. And so I want to start with a question, and here it is. Have you ever met somebody you wish you hadn't? Right? Have you ever met somebody who, man, in retrospect, like if you hadn't met them, your life would be so much better? And I know you're like, this is church, we're supposed to be loving. That sounds so harsh, but it's true. We all have had people in our lives, maybe you currently have someone in your life, who just is literally killing you. So how do we navigate that as we continue our series called Guardrails? If you missed last week, you can go online and catch up. If you're watching online, just same thing. Or if we can serve you in any way, just interact with the online pastor there. But here's what we learned last week about what guardrails really are. Guardrails are systems designed to keep vehicles from straying into dangerous or off-limit areas. And we learned that these guardrails are found really in kind of primarily 3 places. Bridges. So when going off the bridge into a valley is going to kill us or consume us, there's a guardrail there. Medians. Medians protect us from oncoming traffic and oncoming traffic from us, and unexpected curves. And what we learned in life is that there are these dangerous areas of our life. There's dangerous people and dangerous situations, and sometimes things that are unexpected that if we're not careful will cause us to find ourselves in the ditch. And so we all need guardrails. We all need guardrails. Here's the truth. Many of us in this room could have, should have, and would have avoided a lot of regrets if we just had some personal guardrails. Maybe some financial guardrails. Maybe some business guardrails, financial guardrails, but especially when it comes to our relationships, if we'd had some relational guardrails. Because here's the reality. To be human, to be truly human, means to not only experience love, but also to have the capacity to love another. And the problem is we live in dangerous times where love has become something only Hollywood seems to understand, and it's twisted and distorted. For most of us in our life, we maybe feel like we aren't experiencing that. So is there a way to navigate relationships in a way that is meaningful and practical and powerful? I believe so. So today we're going to learn that we need guardrails, and we're going to learn that these guardrails are identified by this. The truth is that culture doesn't encourage them. Culture is content with painted lines. We learned this last week. Here's the deal, right? Culture will mock you for having a guardrail. Culture will say, oh, you're too narrow-minded, right? You're too dogmatic. You're too exclusive. You just need to be more inclusive. Let people be who they want to be. You see, culture is content with painted lines, vague, ambiguous statements like if it feels good or when you're ready. And we learned last week that these are dangerous because we find ourselves in the ditch. And what we also learned is that culture is content with this, but when you find yourself in the ditch, they're ready to mock you for it, label you for it, brand you with it. And so we learned that we need guardrails in our lives. And so here's what we're going to learn today. Well, who we allow into our lives impacts our lives. Who we allow into our lives impacts our lives. Now think about it. The truth is, you let people into your life. And if you look back at your life and you just think about it for a minute, think about not only the good people you allowed into your life and how you're a better person because of it, but think about the people who were toxic, who you let into your life, and how that impacted who you are today. The truth is, we are all shaped and formed by the relationships that we have. Now I know that we can't choose all of our relationships, but we can choose who we allow into our lives. Take this analogy of guardrails and driving, okay? You're driving down the road, you determine who gets to be in the car with you for the ride. And who you pick makes a big difference, right? I knew when I was in high school that if a certain buddy called me and said, hey, I'm gonna pick you up, I knew what that meant. I knew that by getting into that car, he was gonna take me to places I probably shouldn't go, as exciting and as thrilling as it was in the moment. I knew that I'd wake up the next day with regret. I knew that the whole night I'd have to battle my own feelings of conviction and wanting to say something but not wanting to say something. I knew that by getting into that car, I was signing up for that adventure. I also know that who I let into my car impacts the whole ride. So I coach volleyball, and sometimes we go on long trips. And the captain of my girls' volleyball team, she will always be in my car because her playlist is the best. She loves 70s and 80s rock and roll. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So there are some girls who do not go in my vehicle because of that song list, and there are some who do. You see, who you allow into your life impacts your life. And if you don't like the fact that you keep ending up in the ditch, if you don't like the fact that maybe you find yourself in destinations you didn't want to be at or in, perhaps you need to look at who's traveling with you, who you've allowed into your life. Now, I know this is a gross overgeneralization, and I apologize in advance for that, but I just think there are kind of three kinds of people, and knowing these three kinds of people are going to be really helpful for you navigating this question. The first is that there are dangerous people, right? So when you were first learning to drive, someone told you, right, don't pick up hitchhikers, right? Don't pick up hitchhikers. And no offense to hitchhikers, but you don't have the best reputation, right? Sometimes we have this law about hitchhiking for a couple of reasons. Sometimes you don't want that person in your vehicle. And if you're a hitchhiker, sometimes you don't want to be in that vehicle. It's a safety mechanism. It's not exclusive. It's not trying to be rude. It's not slamming hitchhikers. It's just a rule because some people are dangerous. And here's what I've learned in my life. There are people who are takers, right? You let them into your car and they rip all the things off of the car to put into their car. They just take and take and take, and they never have enough. There are takers. There's distractors. You let them in your car, and you know where you're going. But they're like, hey, look at that. And you get distracted. Watch out for that. And you get distracted. You find yourself in the ditch, right? There are also drainers. Drainers just suck the gas out of your life. I mean, it's like every time they're in the vehicle, you can never get to where you want to go. These are dangerous, toxic people. Don't let them in the car. Oh, but he's such a nice guy. Such a nice guy. I mean, okay, when this happens, then he does this, and I don't like that, but he's such a nice guy. Oh man, she is hot. I mean, she is hot. Yeah. Fire burns, baby, run. So dangerous. Dangerous. Say no. Just say no to dangerous. Then there are neutral people. Neutral people are the people who you take short trips with, right? So you're carpooling to work. It's just a short trip because you got to get to one point. It's for a short period of time. But then there are the long distance travelers, right? Have you ever been in a very small car with a lot of people for a very long time, right? Everything's civil, nice, pleasant for the first 4 hours, right? And then someone ate a pepperoni stick, and you're like, God help us all, get out of my car, right? Someone starts rubbing up, you start getting sweaty, agitated, irritated because they're rubbing up against you. And all of a sudden, it only takes about 6 or 8 hours on that trip to Disney World that everything is destroyed, right? So these are the people that you need in your life who inspire you. There are some people you should never let into your car, ever. There are some people that you go, okay, yeah, we'll carpool. They're for short distance, short periods of time. Yeah, we understand that, but you're going to get out at some point. But then there are those who you travel life with. And so we need to understand that there are those kinds of people who are going to be inspiring. And so this is why Ephesians, we learned this last week, Paul said, because you understand this, be careful. That word in the original language just means open your eyes, turn on the lights, be aware. We live in a world full of landmines. Just be open, understand, see what really is. Be careful then how you live. And we learned last week this word live literally means to walk. I'm going to modernize it, drive. Be careful how you drive, who you let into the car, not as unwise, but as wise. And we learned last week that wisdom is actually rooted in this simple thought. Based on my past experience, what is the wise thing to do? Based on my current situation, what is the wise thing to do? Based on my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do? So before you let someone into your car, before you let someone into your life, ask the question, based on my past experience, is this the wise thing to do? I keep ending up with the same loser guy in my life. I keep repeating the cycle of this friend. Every time we go out, I find myself in that place I don't want to be. When I hang out with this group of people, I always feel negative based on your past experience. Be careful. Don't go there. Don't let them in the car anymore. Based on my current situation, maybe you're in a situation where right now a long-term relationship would not be a good idea. You're not in a healthy place. You're not in a good place. What's the wise thing to do? My future hopes and dreams. It's interesting, Jesus said it this way, don't be unequally yoked. It's this idea that two oxen, right, pulling together on a yoke, sometimes they would yoke a stronger bull or ox with a smaller, more fragile or younger one, free-willed one. And what would happen is, because they were pulling it different directions, different ways, it would hurt them both. It's this idea that you're sacred, you're special, so don't just hook up with anybody. Be wise. Be wise. I love the way Proverbs 13 says it this way. It says, walk, again, that word like walk or drive, with the wise and become wise. So are the people in your car wise? If not, why are they in your car? Because we have a really good time. Okay, but you keep ending up in the ditch. How many times do you have to get pulled out of the ditch? Because one of these times, there's no turning back. So, for a companion of fools suffers harm. You know, I love this word in the original language. It's one word that we've made into two, suffer harm. It literally means to sound the trumpet. It's this idea that in the ancient world, when an enemy would come, there was a guard on the watchtower, and he would see the enemy coming from a far distance, and he would blast a horn saying, "Wake up! Get ready! Danger!" And the truth is, your conviction does this for you all the time. Oh, I should have just trusted my gut on this. Yes, you should have. Oh yeah, when you brought her home and your mom didn't like her, you should have listened, maybe. Maybe not, but maybe. There's alarm bells going off in your head. Listen to them. Because if you don't, you could end up in a ditch. Okay, so if we only want to let inspiring people into our car, how do we find that? How do we allow inspiring people into our life? And who is inspiring your life right now? And here's what I've learned. There are three things that for me, tell me about someone who's inspiring. It's their motivation, why they do what they do, their expectations of me, and the purpose for the relationship. So I've had some great inspiring people in my life. I can remember when I was in high school, there was a kid in my class, in my English class, who made some bad life choices. I'll just leave it at that. And because of these bad life choices, school did not come easy naturally. Actually, he made it really hard on himself. But I can remember in our grade 12 year, we had a new teacher. His name was Mr. Young. He was a young guy, and I can remember he was really cool because he wore high tops back in the day, red high tops with a red jacket. I mean, that was cool. And he took a page out of Dead Poets Society, if you've ever seen that, where he jumped up on the table and he started quoting Shakespeare on the first day, and we're like, this guy is so cool, right? And he was so inspiring. He took English from just boring to really, really awesome. But I'll never forget the day that he stood up and he said, I want to read a poem that one of you wrote, submitted to me. And I want to read you this poem because it's powerful. And then at the end of it, I want you to guess who wrote it. So he begins reading this poem, and we're all guessing, you know, the smart kids, right? The really good kids in English. And he finishes this poem, and he's so emotional, and we're so emotional about this poem. We're so in, and then he says, who do you think it was? And I never forget, he said it was this kid that up to this point had flunked a lot of classes, was considered a reject. The only people that would hang out with him were others kind of like him. And in that moment, something changed in this kid. Because he said his name and he made him stand up and we clapped. I can remember in that moment something switched to flip. A flip was switched, yes, was flipped. Flipped a switch, that's what I said. I was just seeing if you're listening. You are, good job. And that kid started to excel in school. And I remember sitting in that class going, I want to be like Mr. Young. I want to one day stand in front of people and inspire them to be better. I remember my volleyball coach, it's maybe why I coach volleyball. I got myself into a lot of trouble as a kid. And I can remember this one time we'd beaten a team really badly, and I'd been a bit of a loudmouth about it. And so as we were leaving the school, I got into a bit of a fight. Actually, it wasn't much of a fight. They ganged up on me and beat me up pretty bad. And I can remember being at home, and I'm like all swollen and bruised and feeling pretty sorry for myself. And my coach came and he visited me. My coach came to my house. And he just sat beside the bed. He said, "Are you okay?" And I remember I said, I want to be like that one day. I want to be somebody who, when life is down and life is unfair, just walks alongside. He didn't have to say a whole lot. He was just there. I remember my dad who was a pastor as well. And I watched him experience some of the things that pastors experience, some of the really great things, but also some of the hard things. You know, the Monday morning when people tell you how you did a poor job and how you missed that and you should do this better. And I watched him navigate, and he never said anything mean about anybody. I said, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. And so these people in my life, some of them are authors, some of them I've never met, like C.S. Lewis. In his book, Mere Christianity, I remember reading that and going, this makes so much sense. It's like if I could communicate in a way that made sense like this, I want to be like that. Some of you inspire me. You may not know it, but you send me a story or I hear about something you've done and how you serve at Lunch Angels. You serve kids who if we weren't there, wouldn't get a proper lunch, and because you're there, they're getting an education, their mental faculties are intact, they can learn, and we're changing generations. I think about those of you who go to Red Frog's university campuses, and you serve in some of the hardest places, just giving out water and popsicles and making sure kids who are intoxicated find a safe way home. I think about the stories I hear of you who invite homeless people out for lunch, or how you help your neighbor shovel her snow out of her driveway. I hear these stories about how you love, and it inspires me. And whenever I find someone who's inspiring, I just want to get in the car with them. I want to be a part of their life. We all need that, but the question is, who's in your car? Who's inspiring you? Who's challenging you with purpose and destiny? And so who's inspiring your life? And in order to protect this, you need guardrails, because guardrails direct and protect. Guardrails, they make sure that you're moving in the right direction. They protect you from going to places you shouldn't go, becoming who you shouldn't be. And so here's what I've learned, that people who aren't careful with their lives won't be careful with yours. And so you got to be careful. You got to be careful who you let into your life. I think about guardrails in another way, property lines. And property lines, if you don't know, if you own a house, you have them. And the truth is that you own and control what happens on that piece of property. You're responsible for that. If something bad happens on your property, it's your responsibility. If your tree that's on your property falls over onto your neighbor's house, that's your responsibility. You are also responsible to protect those boundaries and those borders. So I don't know what it's like for you, but at my house I have a door. And on my door I have a lock. And it's not because I'm a jerk. It's to protect me from the jerks. Right? You're welcome into my house, but if you come into my house, you just need to know that this house works a certain way. You can't just come into my house and start kicking things around. You can't come into my house and just do whatever you want, because it's my space. So here's what I think about this when I think of guardrails when it comes to relationships. Because love means the door is always open, but I will not be your doormat. The door is always open, just so you know. You're welcome, but if you step through that threshold, on this side, there's certain things that we're going to ask you to do. Now, if you're Canadian, we might ask you to take your shoes off. If you're in Thailand, you better, or it's a high offense. If you're an American, you don't care, so it doesn't matter. So we define the boundaries, the parameters of our life. Jesus in Matthew chapter 7, he says this really interesting thing. He talks about don't judging, and we love that part. We say, yeah, don't judge me, you're right. But then he says, don't give what is sacred to the dogs. And you're like, what does that mean? Here's what it means. It means that your life is actually sacred. The word actually in the original is the word holy, and we think of holy as meaning perfect. And yes, it is when it's in reference to God, but not when it comes to us. Holy just means you're different. You're set apart for something noble. You're that fine china that you put away in a special place. You don't let your dog eat its food off of your china. Maybe you do, you need help. But you don't do that, right? You are sacred. And here's the deal. It doesn't matter what you believe about yourself or what someone has told you or labeled or branded you. You are sacred. You're special. You're worth protecting. And so when God establishes guardrails, it's because he loves you. And he says, you're mine, and I would do anything for you. Boy, you want to get me worked up, you mess with my kids. I may be a pastor, but in that moment, I'd be a dad first. You'd have to forgive me because I'm a pastor anyway. So, right? And when we understand that God is fighting for us, he's not against us, and he says, protect your heart. Don't just let anybody in. So, how can I navigate my relationships? Let's just talk really practically before we wrap up here. And so here's a couple of things that I've just learned in my life. Am I perfect at this? No, not at all. The truth is, I'm a bit awkward socially, always have been, don't know why. I'm a bit of an introvert. I struggle the same way that you do. I sometimes say things that I think are neutral, and apparently they're offensive. And I gotta go, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. People hurt me, I hurt them. We recognize in this journey of life, there are times when we hit up against a guardrail. Sometimes we end up in the ditch, but again, I just have learned that there are ways to navigate. And so here's what I've learned. How can you navigate your relationships? First, I've learned that we are responsible to others and for ourselves. You can't play the victim card. I'm sorry. I know that terrible things happen to people, that terrible things have happened to me too. But it doesn't mean that I'm forever a victim. It means that God is willing to step into my life and empower me to make better choices, to live a life that's sacred and holy, not because I am great, but because he has a purpose for me. So I'm on a trip, I am on a journey. And God says you can't allow anybody into your life that distracts you from that. And you're responsible for that, and you're also responsible to others. Here, I thought about this analogy just in between experiences here this morning. I was thinking, so on the road of life, right, you can share the road. You can share the road. You can be respectful and loving, but you just don't let anybody into your car. Second thing I've learned is that we need to establish clear, specific, visionary boundaries. If you're in a relationship, you need to clarify boundaries right off the bat. You just need to know this. And this is why a lot of relationships are in trouble, because they've never defined it, or they've allowed the other person to place expectations and definitions around how it's going to work, and they always feel like they're kind of a doormat. So I can remember when I was thinking about getting married to Carlene, and best choice I ever made, by the way, besides following Jesus, because she inspires me every day. She is incredibly caring and compassionate. I watch her interact with people, and I go, wow, I want to be like that. I want to get in that car. And she's taught me so much. But I can remember when we were first dating, and you set some boundaries. And based on who we wanted to be, we said these are the boundaries and these are the guardrails that we're going to honor. Partly because God, who loves us, has kind of shown us that this is the best way to do it, and also because I love you enough to kind of respect those boundaries. And so we won't get ourselves in certain situations, and we won't do certain things. Now, I can also remember when we were getting married, we talked a lot about our future, and I told her, listen, you just need to know that I am called to do this thing, this pastoring thing, and you know, because she was a pastor's daughter, all that goes with that. It means that we're going to have to maybe move around. Thank God I've been able to be here 16 years and hopefully for the rest of my life. But it means we might have to move around, and it might mean that we don't make a lot of money. And it might mean that sometimes it's tough slugging, and I'm going to come home just broken. because somebody said something. I need you to know that we're going to put our children in that environment. And so if you're in, I would love to have you in my car. But you just need to know that if that isn't for you, it's okay. I love you enough to say you can take your own journey. When we began to get married, we had to set boundaries around our sexuality. Maybe that's an awkward statement for you, but we did. What is the boundary going to be for us? We had to set those boundaries around the language and the words that we're going to use toward each other. There are certain words that for me weren't a big deal. They were a big deal to her. She doesn't like horror movies, so we don't watch them because they're terrifying to her. Well, there are certain movies that I can't watch for other reasons. We don't watch those. We set these boundaries. Why? Because we're on a journey of purpose. We're on a journey of purpose. And it's too important to just let anybody come in and trash the car. It's too important just to let anybody come in and take the wheel. It's too important. And so we set these boundaries. And what I've learned with that is third, that when you do that, you got to say no to everything that is toxic. And this means that people will not like you. I've been called all kinds of wonderful, creative things. Some of them not so nice. Some of them kind of backhanded. Like you don't care about me. That one hurts a lot. Because if I had 700 hours in a day, I could meet all of your expectations. But I don't. I have 24 hours just like you. And just maybe like a lot of you in this room, I have a wife that I love dearly, and so I will protect her. And my children, you just need to know, I'm sorry. I could be wrong on this, but they come first. They always have. If my kids need something, I drop everything and I go help them. I don't enable them when they don't need it. I'm just talking about legitimate. But here's what I've learned. You got to say no. And so people get upset with me all the time. Oh, you don't have time for me? I do. In 3 weeks. Well, you don't care about me. No, I do. I care about you enough to actually have a time schedule that will slot that in. Because if I just dropped everything for you, then I have to say no to a whole bunch of other people. I've learned to do that with my finances. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, that I have to say no. Carly and I have these big dreams of what we want with our life. So it means saying no. When we were first married to golfing, as much as I love it, because we couldn't afford it, so I just said no. It was hard. But in that point, it would have been toxic for me. So you say no to everything that is toxic. And so I guess the question is, what do you need to say no to today? And fourth, you need to embrace conflict. Here's that. Wake up. Conflict is inevitable. Wherever you have two people who have a brain, you're going to have conflict. And so the question is learning how to navigate it and to embrace it. Here's just really quickly things I've learned. If you're wrong, admit it. Okay, I'm going to empower you with two of the most powerful words ever spoken by especially a man. Are you ready? I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. It hurts. You're proud, but you were wrong. Just admit it. Say, I'm sorry. And if you were right, don't gloat. Don't say, I told you so. I mean, that does not help, okay? And if you're not sure who's right and who's wrong, then engage a third unbiased party. Someone who can help you navigate that, because you need to learn to navigate conflict. And then fifth, finally, be motivated to make those around you better. As I close, I know that maybe some of you are thinking, well, this doesn't sound very loving. This sounds kind of exclusive, like you get to pick your friends, you get to pick and choose who you want in your life. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we share the road with respect and dignity. We don't run people off the road, right? We don't play chicken with people so that we force a control battle and get them into the ditch. We don't laugh at people when they're ditched. We share the road, but we are careful about who we let into the car. There are going to be times when you have to say no to toxic people. We can share the road. I will love you from a distance. I will respect your choices, but I will not allow your choices to dictate mine. So, how do we do this? I love what John, one of Jesus' best friends, probably his best friend, says the man who Jesus loved and who loved Jesus, wrote this about Jesus. He said, "The Word became flesh." I love that because it's a reminder that when we were in the ditch of life, when we were driving our life in chaos, we were missing curves and turns, and we were going off the bridge, there was someone who cared enough about us to come into our car with us. What this just means in everyday language is Jesus stepped into our car. He stepped into our car, and he made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. You see, truth is love expressed in what is right. And what is right is what is right, regardless of what anyone else thinks. So true love is saying what is the right thing to do. Not what I feel, not what I want, what is the right thing to do. And grace is love manifested in what is safe. What's the safest environment I can create for you to be who you were called to be and experience truth? See, the cool thing about a guardrail is it's rigid enough to keep you from going into the ditch, but it's flexible enough to minimize the damage. It's truth and grace. It's loving you enough to say, no, this is the truth, but I love you enough to allow some give and take on this, to negotiate this, to navigate this. That I'm not going to ram anything down your throat, but I'm just going to direct. And so I'm going to understand that these guardrails are to direct and protect. And so the real test, I guess, of true love and true relationship is, have you created a space where truth and grace are fully expressed and experienced? Do you love that person enough that you would do anything for them, even if it means saying no to them? So I'm reminded of what Jesus did for me. When I was in the ditch of life, when I'd made a series of really bad choices, he saw me in that space and he stepped into my life and he said, I'll show you a better way if you trust me. I'll invite you into my experience. I'll invite you into a better way of living. I'll invite you into a life of purpose. And if you'll allow me, I'll establish these guardrails because I love you, because you are holy, you are sacred to me. And I'll help you navigate these relationships. I will encourage you to stay away from the things that are dangerous and aspire to the things that are inspiring. So today, what guardrails do you need in your relationships? Maybe you're here and you find yourself in a ditch. The truth is, your heart has been shattered and broken so many times, you don't think it's possible to ever be put back together. The great thing about this good news is that God is able to heal every broken heart and restore every broken dream. He is able to pull you out of the ditch of life and set you back on the road. He is the great mechanic, the auto body maker who restores all things back to their original purpose, and he puts you back on a course to life. And if you are here and you need that, whether you're watching online or you're here live, you are in a great place. Because this is the God that we follow. His name is Jesus. And if you're here and you find yourself in a toxic scenario, could I just encourage you to get that person out of the car? And you say, well, it doesn't sound very loving. Actually, it's probably the most loving thing you can do. Because allowing them to continue in that behavior inside the car is only to enable and empower them. And so maybe it's time for you to say no to that toxic relationship if it doesn't align with God's purpose for your life. And if you're in a place where you are healthy and you are strong, then I could encourage you to be an inspiring person, a person that other people want to be with. Actually, other people want to get into your car. They want to be with you. Before you can inspire others, you need to be inspiring, right? So learn what it means to inspire. Know where you're going. Identify that. Craft that into a statement of some kind. This is my life. And you're welcome to join me in this journey. So may your life and your relationships experience God's amazing guardrails so you can experience purpose. So God, I thank you for this reminder today. And I know it's a lot of information. And I know that as I'm speaking, there are a lot of questions, a lot of, yeah, but, or if only he knew. But God, the truth is you know. You know every situation, you know every circumstance, you know every relationship. And so I just want to pray first for those who are listening online or those who are here today who find themselves in a broken place. They feel like their heart has become a doormat and it's been trampled and disrespected, broken. I pray today that they would lean into you and that you would heal them. God, you do that all the time. You do that. I've seen it so many times. So God, I pray that that would happen and that they would allow you to step into their life and take control, take the wheel, and show them places they would never see otherwise and to destinations they could never make on their own. God, we give ourselves to you. And for those of us, Father, who need to get rid of toxic people in our life, give us the courage and the strength, the loving courage to make that decision to just say, listen, this is where I'm going and you're welcome to join me, but this is where I'm going. And to not allow anything to distract us or hinder us or limit us, to justify or make excuses for the bad choices. God, help us to align ourselves with inspiring people who align their lives with ours in order to fulfill a greater purpose. And finally, God, I just ask that you'd help us to have open hearts and minds to those all around us. May we be so courageous in what you've called us to that we will not compromise. But may we also be so open that we invite others to join us in the journey, whether it's just for a short period of time or forever. Remind us of how important these guardrails are in the relationships of our life. So help us, I pray, in your name. Amen. And so on this day, I encourage you with the truth that you are sacred, that you are sacred, that you were created for a purpose, that you're not a mistake, that you are not an accident. And I bless you with the truth that God instilled in you not only the capacity to receive love, but the capacity to give it away. So may you learn to navigate the landmines, the dangerous road called relationships. May you allow God to establish guardrails that will guide and direct and lead you to his purpose for your life. And may you be so inspiring in the small things of life and the great that others want to join you in the journey. I bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.